I love you.
What is going on, everybody? This is Mike Hughes, and you're listening to Mike on the Mic and everything Chicago sports-related podcast. We are back, and we are better than ever. It's a super rainy day in the Chi right now, obviously. If you're trying to watch TV, you can't because the weathermen have every single station on. So shout out to Tom Skilling going out with a bang, one of the biggest storms of 2024 thus far. So shout out to him going out with a bang. He's on literally every single channel known to man right now. But we had some Chicago Cubs baseball earlier today. That was a lot of fun, really breaking down what the Chicago Cubs were able to accomplish against the Cincinnati Reds today and what occurred just moments before the game even started. We have a lot to break down, but first and foremost, we have to give a shout out to the Chicago Cubs offense who actually produced a run today. First time in over 2 days and over 2 games since the Cubs were able to put a run on the board, tying with the Cincinnati Reds 6-6. Craig Counsell said, "I'm good. I don't need to see any more." They didn't go into extra innings. Obviously, you don't want any injuries to occur, in extra innings in a meaningless game 5 of spring training game in Mesa, Arizona. So completely understandable. So the Cubs tied in this game. They are currently 2-1 so far in spring training. But to put up 6 runs after being no hit for the first 6+ innings, there were a lot of conversations about, hey, is this offense going to be able to do this? Are the young guys going to be able to continue to be consistent and continue to get good at bats? And we saw that exactly today. Before we get into anything, let's talk about Bailey Horn getting traded back to the Chicago White Sox in exchange for right-handed pitcher Matthew Thompson. Now, obviously, we acquired Bailey Horn back in 2021 in exchange for Ryan Tepera, and that was one of those moves where I felt like we got the bang for our buck. Bailey's one of those guys that I think if he could stay healthy is one of the more interesting prospects that we have. He's one of those guys that I don't think he's good enough to be in the rotation quite yet, but he's definitely one of those middlemen that you can have in the bullpen, maybe start some days, maybe come out of the pen the majority of the time. But we never really got to see the full experiment of a Bailey Horn. That's unfortunate. So to give him back to the Chicago White Sox to make a roster spot on the 40-man roster for Cody Bellinger, who officially is a Chicago Cub today. We expect that press conference coming up sometime tomorrow or the day after that. They haven't solidified a date on that quite yet, but it's interesting, man. It's interesting that they decided to go with Bailey. I thought there were a couple other guys that they could have went after and maybe moved on from. If I were to pull it up right now for the prospects of 2023 that we had in the top 100, I think there's definitely a lot of guys you could have picked over Bailey Horn, but maybe they just didn't see the potential with him. Maybe they just wanted to get something in return. And they didn't, want to make a huge move by trading a Hayden Wesneski or a Caleb Killian. So, they tried to do what they could just to make that spot for Cody. I felt like personally, you could have definitely, and this is just me speaking freely, I would have definitely been more comfortable with them getting rid of a Patrick Wisdom before getting rid of a Bailey Horn. I've kind of just seen what I've needed to see from a Patrick Wisdom. You know what I mean? I love the guy. He's been on the pod before. He's an amazing individual. But the reality is this. We have you in here because you can hit against lefties. And all 2023 and all of right now, you can't hit against lefties or anybody. So yeah, that's really where I'm at right now as it pertains to Patrick Wisdom. Maybe that'll change as spring training continues. Maybe he'll show me up. And that's perfectly okay. If I'm wrong, that's a great thing. You know what I mean? But I think as of right now, it's really unfortunate that, a guy like Bailey Horn loses his job to bring in Belly. And it's completely understandable. But when you have Michael Busch, Matt Mervis, Cody Bellinger, Pete Crow Armstrong, and all these other lefties in the room, why hold on to a guy like Patrick Wisdom? It just really doesn't make sense to me. But with that being said, let me move my camera because I feel like it's way too high right now. But yeah, I think the game itself is interesting, man. One day you're here, and the next day you're traded. But at the end of the day, I think Bailey had a lot of opportunities to have success and just wasn't able to stay healthy. So that's one of the biggest reasons to why he got moved back to the White Sox. Luckily for him, he's only going to the other side of town. So my cousin Ryan told me. It's accurate, but it is different as it pertains to the minor leagues. It's probably going somewhere completely different because he never was in the big leagues. But with that being said, let's get into the game, man. Kyle Hendricks gets on the bump, and he starts the first couple innings for the Chicago Cubs, strikes out Elly De La Cruz, which was absolutely phenomenal. Elly De La who? I have no idea. But with that being said, man, it's great to see the professor back on the mound. It's great to see him make his spring training debut. Last year we kind of didn't know if that was the last dance. And going into this offseason, you didn't know if, one, he was going to want to be a Chicago Cub, or two, if the Cubs even wanted him. So the fact that he's back in the rotation, he's back in this ball club, it speaks volumes. You have a leader, a guy who's been here through the highs and the lows, and then somewhere in between. He's been a part of every single fold that the Cubs have had, every single part of this core and the next core. He's been here from start to finish. So it's great to see him here. Obviously, he's been in the Cubs for 10 years now, so it's absolutely great to see him continue to be a product of what the Cubs farm system could potentially be. But I think at the end of the day, man, what I wanted to see from Kyle was just look good. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't going out there thinking he's going to tip his cap and give up what he's going to do in 2024 to a division rival in the Cincinnati Reds. But I definitely did want him to go out there and just have a day. You know what I mean? I didn't want him to go crazy. I didn't want him to, hurt himself or anything else. But on the day he pitches 2 innings, he gives up 1 hit, 1 run, 1 walk with 1 strikeout. And that strikeout was Elly De La Cruz. The more interesting thing to me today for what we saw and what I think we could potentially see more of is Adbert Alzolay. I think right now Adbert's in a weird situation because he hasn't been deemed the everyday closer for the Chicago Cubs because Craig Counsell said he's still figuring out everybody's roles, and even going into the season, everybody might not have solidified roles right away. So he doesn't have a closer set in stone quite yet. Obviously, your setup guy, I would imagine, is Hector Neris, but we still haven't quite gotten that word from Craig Counsell. We saw Adbert come in the 3rd inning in replace of Kyle Hendricks, which was kind of weird to me. I understand it's spring training, so there's not a lot to fight for. Definitely could have used him in the 10th if we went into extras, or even in the 9th when we were trying to fix some stuff. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be interesting to see what could potentially happen with Adbert. I would like to still see him in that closer role. I don't think that's going to change whatsoever. I have Frankie in the comments right now. He says, have you seen anything you think the Cubs might need yet? From what I've seen so far, especially with what we have, listen, I'm not going to sit up here and say anybody needs to get traded. But here's what I've noticed. I've noticed we have a lot of guys that all kind of do the same thing. You know what I mean? The James Triantoses of the world, the Matt Shaws of the world, especially in that outfield. Owen Casey, Kevin Alcantara, Pete Crow Armstrong, Seiya Suzuki, Ian Happ, Cody Bellinger. Who else could we talk? Brennan Davis and so many others. We have a stacked outfield. We have a stacked infield on all levels. I think if you want to make a move, I think this is the time, or around the trade deadline will be the time. We've heard that the Cubs could potentially be interested in bringing in Pete Alonso at some point during the 2024 season or in 2025's free agency. I think you're in a position right now. We saw a great thing today from James Triantos. We saw greatness from Matt Shaw. We saw what Owen Casey and guys like that could potentially do. Brennan Davis the other day, 3 RBIs, a double, and a home run last Saturday. So, you want these guys to continue to have success, but you understand that only 9 of them can be on the field at one time. That's just point blank, period. So there's a bunch of prospects, man. We have 7 top 100 prospects, and that's not it. You know what I mean? Like, sorry for being a blank real quick, but that's not all we have. We have more guys coming. More guys are on the rise. So I think they're going to definitely have to package some of these guys, and that's really where I'm at. You want that star power at bat, that big, huge guy who's going to knock in home runs, 40-plus home runs a year, and I believe that's Christopher Morel, but you could never have too many chefs in the kitchen as it pertains to hitting dingers all day long. So if the Chicago Cubs could potentially make a move on Pete Alonso at some point during the 2024 season, I think that's a major win for them. For me, what that might look like, I think, and this isn't me knocking any of those guys. It's just these are very talented guys who are worth the contract and the talent of a Pete Alonso. You could look at a Michael Busch. You could look at a Matt Mervis, a James Triantos, a Brennan Davis, a Owen Casey, guys like that who are somewhat blocked, You know what I mean? Like we saw what happened with Michael Bush. Michael Bush is now a Chicago Cub, and we've seen what happened to him in the LA region with the Los Angeles Dodgers. How he was blocked by Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Justin Turner for years. He's 27 years old. He's a rookie. He's been ready for the last 3-4 years. Why is that? Because he's been blocked, and that's just the simple fact of it. And I think there are going to be a few guys that get blocked. James Triantos plays second base traditionally, so you're already blocked from the up-the-middle defense of Dansby and Nico, who just came off Gold Glove years. You're not going to move on from any of those guys. They're extended through the next 4 or 5 years, so it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to get all these guys in the kitchen at once so they can all cook up their own careers. So I think some of them are definitely going to come and go. Some of them are going to be trade pieces to make the Cubs, even more legitimate contenders than they already are. And other ones are just going to have to continue to wait until maybe they get an opportunity, or unfortunately injuries happen. And guys, it's next man up mentality. So with that being said, though, I really think that's where I'm at. The only guy I'd really make a move for right now is a Pete Alonso. I've heard the Shane Bieber rumors, but I'm just not completely sold on that yet. And the Cubs also traded Bailey Horn today to the Chicago White Sox, and I was hoping maybe Dylan Cease's name were involved. I'll give you Bailey back, you give me Dylan back. I think we could have had a good thing going, but obviously that didn't transpire. They got Matthew Thompson in exchange, right-handed pitcher, who will likely probably start in either single A or double A. If I'm not mistaken, I'm not quite familiar with Matthew, but I'll get on that and let you guys know. But with that being said, man, really breaking that down and, understanding that, we're at this place right now where I think the Cubs are in a really good position. Even today, you're not seeing exactly what you want from these guys, but again, it's spring training. You know what I mean? We're not going to take too much into it. We saw Carl Edwards Jr. today make his Cubs debut since leaving the Cubs just a few years ago. 2016 World Series champion. Love to see him back in the building today. On the day he had 1 inning pitched with a 0 ERA, no hits allowed, was able to get out of it. Jose Cuellos was absolutely phenomenal today as well. 2 strikeouts, no hits allowed in 1 inning pitched. We saw a lot from a lot of guys. Wingman McWilliams, Mark Leiter Jr., a few guys, Julian Merriweather. We got to see a lot of the bullpen today, and that was a lot of fun to really just see some of the bigger name guys. We still haven't seen Hector Neris at a consistent rate, but I'm excited to get him and Yency Almonte on the mound. Matt Mervis on the day, it wasn't great whatsoever. You know what I mean? Like Matt took his walk. He got a walk in 1 at bat, which was fine. But we're not seeing what we'd like. On the year so far in 5 games, he's batting 167, which just isn't good enough at this point. Now, mind you, Ian Happ's batting 125 and also didn't have a hit today, and he struck out in 3 at bats, so he hasn't looked great either. But yeah, it is what it is. Dansby Swanson took his walk. There wasn't a lot to go off of. Even Christopher Morel had 2 Ks today. So the Cubs offense was very bleak. Now, James Triantos Pete Crow Armstrong broke up the no-hitter today going into I believe the 7th inning, 6th or 7th inning. It was absolutely great to see Pete get after it. Not only did he have the game-tying, I guess you could say win, because that was what it was. It ended in a tie. The game-tying win, which was really cool. To see him get 2 hits today, and they were very impactful plays. Now, obviously, that left fielder definitely should have caught the ball in the bottom of the 9th, but, you take it for what it is. You know what I mean? Pete got a hit out of it. So, it's for him to break up the no-hitter in the beginning to start the rally, and then for him to end it was really cool. I think that's great for his confidence and what he's trying to do right now. Matt Shaw with a big knock. I thought he went yard going all the way to right field, bringing in multiple RBIs on that one. So that was really cool to see. And, of course, James Triantos DHing today, not putting him at third, not putting him at second, trying to find out what he's able to do from a hitting perspective. Arizona Fall League MVP, and he has not missed a beat. He was absolutely phenomenal today as well. He was great at taking his pitches. He was great at understanding where he was in the count. He wasn't forcing anything whatsoever. And, that's really what you want from Triantos right now. In 4 at-bats, he has – how many hits does he have? Let's check it out. He has 1 hit, 2 walks. So, I mean, that's really – am I looking at the right thing? 2 RBIs, pardon me. 1 hit, 2 RBIs, and 4 at-bats. So, that's really where I'm at right now for Triantos. We've had him on the show. He's a humble kid. He works his ass off, man. He's not going to talk too much. You know what I mean? He's not – respectfully, he's not Pete Crow Armstrong. He's not going to be, the swaggiest, drippiest, always with the cameras on him. It's just not him. You know what I mean? And he shows up every day, and he works his ass off. And that's what I love about Triantos. And that's no shot at Pete either. They're just 2 different players. So you might not know much about James Triantos, but I promise you by the end of this spring training, you would definitely remember his name. He's one of those guys that I think if I had to compare He reminds me of a Ben Zobrist or a Brandon Nimmo offensively. I think he's got a lot of contact ability. I think he's a guy who can also hit some home runs here and there. Even a Nico Horner, I think is a really good comparison as a Nico Horner offensively. James obviously, drafted as a third baseman, but they moved him over to second. He even played a little center from time to time at Myrtle Beach last year, or South Bend, wherever he was in the second half of last year. But it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be interesting to see how all this transpires with all these different guys. Obviously, it was a big day for the prospects. That's our number one takeaway. Picro Armstrong, Matt Shaw, James Triantos, phenomenal days at the plate. Kyle Hendricks, Adbert Alzolay, and obviously Jose Cuellos were the big names of the pitching staff. And then really what I want to continue to see is success from our big guys. We haven't seen Mike Tauchman have a shit ton of success so far. We haven't seen Nico Horner or Dansby Swanson offensively have a lot of success so far. And I understand it's just spring training, but if you start slow in spring training and that trickles into April, it's going to be just like outside right now. It's going to be a stormy April. So it's going to be hard, man. It's going to be hard to continue to see these guys going after it, continue to see these guys having success, and I'm happy about it. Get a couple comments in there. Frankie's here right now. Frankie said, I'm hearing Yankees might make a trade for Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease is a great commodity, man. I followed Dylan Cease since about 2015, 2016, when the Cubs drafted him. And he's one of those guys that, to this day, I wish we didn't give up on. I think if you had a rotation right now for the Cubs of Justin Steele, Shota Imanaga, and Dylan Cease on top of Cade Horton, Ben Brown, Jordan Wicks, and all these young guys, I think you're in a really great, even Kyle Hendricks, you're in a really great position. Jameson Tyone, I think they'd be in a totally different conversation right now as it pertains to the future of this team. But, it's going to be a lot of fun, man. Steeler said, brother, let's spread love and not hate. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Always. But yeah, with that being said, man, I think Dylan Cease going to the Yankees would be totally interesting. I think Yankees fans would love him. He was great with the Chicago White Sox from 2019 to 2021, and then kind of had a dip after that. Whether you wanted to say that's because the White Sox offensive production was just subpar, and Dylan's just been struggling to continue to have success, and whatever. Or you're saying what they are overworking him, whatever it may be. Everybody's got an excuse, so I think maybe a change of scenery would be best for Dylan. I know a lot of teams are definitely interested in him as of right now. Instead of going after Snell, from what I'm hearing, man, the Yankees are still very interested in Snell, but Frankie, listen, I hear you. I was right there with you all off season long. I'm waiting for Cody Bellinger. You're waiting for Blake Snell. And obviously I still didn't get the deal I wanted. You know what I mean? Like Blake Snell hopefully doesn't sign the same deal as Bellinger, because then you're going to have both of those guys in free agency most likely in 2025. You know what I mean? Like Belly has the opt-outs in the first two seasons, so we'll see what happens. But Bellinger is officially a Chicago Cub. The Cubs posted that all over social media today. The deal is official, so we will have a meeting either with Jed Hoyer and Cody Bellinger tomorrow or in the upcoming days. It's going to be a lot of fun. I don't know if Craig Counsell would be in that meeting. I would imagine so, but I also have no idea. But with that being said, man, I appreciate you guys for tuning in tonight. Make sure you hit that follow button if you haven't already. Share this out to anybody who's a Chicago Cubs or baseball fan. We are covering Chicago Cubs baseball and baseball in general all season long. Spring training, regular season, all-star game, everything. We are going to be in there like swimwear. So until then, I'll check you guys out later. Peace.
I love you.